Welcome back for day 11 of our Wisdom for 2026 walkthrough of Proverbs. We are going to be in chapter 11 today, so excited to share the wisdom of the Lord with you. As I was reading through this chapter, trying to figure out what the Lord, trying to pick up what the Lord was saying, there are a couple of things that really have jumped out to me today. And it's all about radical generosity and justice and fairness that God cares about. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about what's important to the Lord and how he weighs things as opposed to the way we might weigh things. So let's get started. Chapter 11, verse 1. Dishonest scales are an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When pride comes, then comes shame. When pride comes, then comes shame, but with the humble is wisdom. Verse 3, the integrity of the upright will guide them, but perversity of the unfaithful will destroy them. Riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. The righteousness of the blameless will direct his way all right, but the wicked will fall by his own wickedness. The righteousness of the upright will deliver them, but the unfaithful will be caught by their lust. When a wicked man dies, his expectation will perish, and the hope of the unjust perishes. The righteous is delivered from trouble, and it comes to the wicked instead. The hypocrite with his mouth destroys his neighbor, but through knowledge the righteous will be delivered. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices, and when the wicked perish, there is jubilation. By the blessing of the upright, the city is exalted, but it is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. He who is devoid of wisdom despises his neighbor, but a man of understanding holds his peace. A talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is a faithful spirit conceals a matter. Verse 14, where there is no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors there is safety. He who is surety for a stranger will suffer, but one who hates being surety is secure. Verse 16, a gracious woman retains honor, but ruthless men retain riches. But the merciful man does good for his own soul, but he who is cruel troubles his own flesh. The wicked man does deceptive work, but he who sows righteousness will have a sure reward. As righteousness leads to life, so he who pursues evil pursues it to his own death. Those who are of a perverse heart are an abomination to the Lord, but the blameless in their ways are of his delight. Though they join forces, the wicked will not go unpunished, but the posterity of the righteous will be delivered. Verse 22, as a ring of gold in a swine's snout, so is a lovely woman who lacks discretion. The desire of the righteous is only good, but the exception of the wicked is wrath. 24, there is no one who scatters yet increases more, and there is one who withholds more than is right, but it leads to poverty. The generous soul will be made rich, and he who waters will also be watered himself. The people will curse him who withholds grain, but blessing will be on the head of him who sells it. He who earnestly seeks good finds favor, but the trouble will come to him who seeks evil. He who trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like foliage. He who troubles his own house will inherit the wind, and the fool will be servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he who wins souls is wise. If the righteous will be recompensed on the earth, how much more the ungodly and the sinner? So this one is super packed. And I will just tell you, earlier today, I was reminded by a couple of folks. I had taught something maybe a year or two ago at my church, and apparently it rung a bell for somebody. And so the analogy I had given, which is not from me, I heard from someplace else, was about chewing the cud, right? And so one of the things that we've talked about every day this week is that there's a lot of things that the Lord repeats in the Proverbs, chapter after chapter after chapter. There's certain themes or certain things that he wants us to pay attention to. In fact, it even says, pay attention, focus your attention on these things. But the example that I had given in the teaching a couple years ago was about taking in the word is like chewing the cud. So cows have multiple stomachs. And so they eat some grass, they swallow it, they regurgitate it, they chew it some more, and then it goes down to stomach number 2. They regurgitate it again, they chew it some more, and then they put it in stomach number 3. And I don't know how many stomachs they have. There's multiple. But the whole point is by bringing those things back to the surface, chewing on them again, meditating on them again, rehearsing it again, tasting it again, and swallowing it again and applying it to your life. And so one of the things I think what the Lord is doing is the fact that he's repeating multiple themes over and over again. He's having us chew the cud every chapter. There's some principle that we really need to get down deep in our spirit. And one of the things that really struck me about this particular chapter, where just like all the others, there's a comparison between doing what's right versus not doing what's right and what the consequences are or the fruit thereof. But there's a lot of conversation over the last few chapters about the wealth and favor and the good things that come to those who are righteous. And in verse 10, and I love this particular passage, and I think as we look at our world today, that we can begin to see this actually happening and in action. Verse 10 says, when it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices. And when the wicked perish, there is jubilation. What I believe that is talking about is that when those who are in the Lord, those who are choosing to be righteous and merciful and gracious to the people that they lead, in this particular passage is talking about a city. When you have righteous leaders in place, the city rejoices because they're being taken care of. Their needs are being met. The concerns of their heart are being addressed. But when there's wicked leadership in place, it is a struggle for people. There is poverty. There are issues in the land. And so when the wicked are dealt with, and this passage says, when the wicked perish, there is jubilation. You will see people in the streets celebrating how someone who has not had their best interests at heart is no longer in power. And then the next verse, in verse 11, says, by the blessing of the upright, the city is exalted, but is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. So when you have wisdom and you are in leadership, when you are wise and righteous and upright, you're going to take care of the needs of the people that you are led to, that you are leading. And so when the upright are ruling the city thrives. The city or the community or the business or the industry or your family. When you have righteous leadership, things increase. Things can be good. There's the economy is flowing. There's all kinds of things that happen when you have the right people with the right heart motive, with the right plans and purposes in place. And it's important that they have wise counsel around them as well. Again, in verse 14, where there is no counsel, the people fail. So you find in communities, you hear these news stories all the time where you have a dictator or somebody who's kind of overthrown the government. They don't have wise counsel around them. And so the people are not safe. But where there's a multitude of counselors, and not just counselors, but godly counselors, wise counselors, then you can make good decisions, and the people benefit from that. One other thing that we've seen a lot of exposure happening in the land and going on all over the place. There's lots of exposure happening, and there's so much going on in our nation and across the world where there's lots of wickedness that is being exposed. We're seeing things in entertainment and the political sphere, even in church and culture, all over the place. We're seeing that there's things that are being exposed. And though it's heartbreaking to see that things have been hidden, I think it is a promise that's being fulfilled in verse 21, where it says, though they join forces, the wicked will not go unpunished, but the posterity of the righteous will be delivered. And so that's the Lord in his righteousness and his with his just weights, right? Verse 1 said, dishonest scales are an abomination to the Lord. So the things that have been done in the dark, the things that people have been doing to steal, kill, and destroy, those that have been manipulating things behind the scenes, the Lord is bringing those things to bear. He's exposing those things that have been unrighteous. He's been exposing leaders who have been unrighteous, who have been causing their communities to suffer. The Lord is making wrong things right. And so the word is true. The wicked will not go unpunished. But more importantly than the punishment for wickedness actually coming to fruition is the benefit of righteous acts. And we read yesterday, and I believe the day before, about how there is wealth, there is prosperity, there are treasures that come with those who make righteous decisions. And there's a real benefit to that. That righteous wealth is not just for the person who made it or who made the decision, but it is really for the benefit of many. And that's why the city is blessed when there's righteous leaders, because they're bringing wealth in that is good for the people. And this verse 24 through 26, which I'll read again, which really talks about radical generosity. There is one who scatters yet increases more, and there is one who withholds more than is right, but it leads to poverty. The generous soul will be made rich, and he who scatters will also be watered himself. The people will curse him who withhold grain, but blessing will be on the head of him who sells it. So God's nature is to be generous, and we are made in his image. We're made in his likeness, so we are made like him. So we should have a generous spirit. Sometimes it feels like there's just too much need to go around. But if our heart has been stirred to be generous, we cannot outgive the Lord. And the more that we sow, the more that we scatter, which is what verse 24 says, we increase more. So the more you give out of the abundance that's in your heart to be a blessing, to be charitable, to be loving towards people, the more you will get in return. And those that are selfish, those who are, hoarding what they have, they don't get any more. And it says the people will curse him who withhold grain. But the blessing will be on the head of him who sells it. So not only are we to be generous by giving of ourselves, giving of our time, giving of our resource to the benefit of other people, we are also called to sell. And it's a blessing to people. So that immediately makes me think about the story of Joseph in Genesis. And in Genesis, I believe it's like 28 to 40 is the story of Joseph, and all of the many iterations that he goes through. But at the end of his story, he was basically the prime minister to Egypt, and he was second in command. And that's because he interpreted a dream the Lord gave him that there would be 7 years of plenty, and there would be 7 years of famine. And so because Pharaoh understood that he interpreted that dream through the Lord, that only he could be the one to prepare for what was coming. And so Joseph, he spent all that time as they were harvesting grain. He put some aside, he gave some. And then when the famine hit, he had surplus to go around. But he didn't just give it to people because they were in need. He sold it to them. And so there is a blessing to sell. And so there's a lot of misconceptions about money and sales and providing for people. There's misunderstandings about what the word says about wealth. This book of Proverbs talks about the blessing that comes with righteous decisions, and wealth comes. Riches do come from that. So it's not wrong. It's just the way that you bring that wealth into your life is what determines whether or not it's blessed or whether it's cursed wealth. It's not just money is bad, because it's the love of money, which is the root of evil. The root of all evil is the love of money. Money is a tool, just like a hammer, just like a screwdriver, just like a stapler. It is a tool to be used to do something. And so if money is a tool, it is no problem in the Lord's eyes to be generous and give that away, or to sell what is needed so people have what they need. It's a blessing. If you need it, let's think about back in COVID days, when you just needed toilet paper and all the stores were out, and you found that one store that had toilet paper or hand sanitizer or whatever the thing was. You were happy to give them your money because it filled the need that you have. So there is blessing and selling the things that people need, as long as you're not using usury or that you're taking advantage of people, but you are selling a good. You are selling a good and a service. There's nothing wrong with that. And the Lord actually calls it a blessing for when you have something that people need to sell it. Verse 27, he who earnestly seeks good finds favor, and trouble will come to him who seeks evil. So if your heart is positioned to serve others and you seek good, you seek to do good, you seek to be good, you seek to speak well of people, you seek to extend God's grace to people, you will find favor. And that is a phenomenal promise. And it's something that we really need to take into consideration. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he who wins souls is wise. Let's think about fruit in general, right? You could have an apple tree in your yard. The fruit of the apple tree is an actual apple. But an apple is good for food. It is good to bring nourishment. It is good to bring life. It is a sustaining fruit. And then there's seed so it can propagate again. And so I really think about that in terms of the tree of life, right? The fruit of a righteous person is a tree of life. So that fruit then is a life-giving property for those that come and eat the fruit thereof. And so I just feel like this whole chapter is really about when your heart is positioned correctly, that you will be generous and that people will be blessed by you being around them because you're using wisdom, because you're using practical application and understanding, that you are being kind and gracious and upright and just. One, the Lord delights in it, but two, it's a blessing to other people, and then you reciprocate that back into your life. So I hope that blesses you. Would love to find out which passage, which verse or a couple of verses really stood out to you. What is the Lord speaking to you about generosity in your own life? Are there times where the Lord has prompted your heart to do something and you said no? Or maybe you wanted to do the right thing because you thought it was the right thing, but the Lord didn't prompt you and it didn't turn out right. I think there's something to be said about listening for when the Lord wants you to give. That way you won't be taken advantage of, and just be really in the spirit to find out, where do you want me to sow? Where do you want me to be generous? Who do you want to give the resource that you've given to me? Where do you want me to plant it in the lives of other people? So I think those are really important questions that we all need to be asking ourselves. But there's so much blessing when we are generous because God is generous. He delights in us being righteous and just because it is good for everybody. So I bless you in the name of Jesus. I pray that this has been impactful for you. Please like and share, subscribe to this channel so you can keep up with what we're doing throughout the rest of this study and whatever else the Lord has me do after that. And I look forward to connecting with you again for chapter 12. See you tomorrow. Have a great day.